Mara didn't hear the first gunshot. She felt it. Felt the vibration ripple through the metal dumpster she was crouched behind, as the alley lit up with muzzle flash. Her heartbeat slammed against her ribs like it wanted to escape her chest. A second shot split the night, louder, closer, ricocheting off the brick just inches from her head. She curled tighter into herself, teeth clenched, breath shaking through her lungs. Her phone buzzed in her pocket with a message that might have saved her night. But she didn't dare move. Not until the footsteps got closer. Not until the voice she prayed she'd never hear again growled out her name like someone choking on a secret. Mara, I know you're here. Cormac Doyle's enforcer dragged the words through the darkness like a hook across stone, slow and patient, confident she had nowhere to run. She could see the shadow of his boots now, heavy and unhurried, stepping through the puddles that reflected the neon lights of Raventon's midnight chaos. She held her breath. One wrong inhale, and he'd hear her. One wrong twitch, and she'd never see morning. Then her phone buzzed again. She squeezed her eyes shut. Of all the times, of all the nights. The enforcer stopped walking. His shadow stilled, and Mara knew she was dead. The alley stretched behind him, empty except for trash cans and flickering street lamps. But she understood the way men like him worked. They didn't need to see her. They just needed the smallest slip, one tiny sound. And they'd drag her by the hair back to the life she'd run from 2 years ago. Back to her father's control. Back to Doyle's cruelty. Mara, the enforcer said again, quieter this time, as if coaxing a scared animal. Let's not make this messy. But he wanted it messy. She knew that. They always wanted it messy. When he took another step, Mara made a decision so fast she didn't even feel it happen inside her. She lunged from behind the dumpster and sprinted toward the opposite street, her shoes slapping through water, her breath shredding her throat. A shout ripped behind her. A gunshot cracked the air. She didn't know if she'd been hit. She didn't stop to check. She just ran. Cars screeched. Horns blared. Some people shouted after her, thinking she was some drunk girl fleeing a bad date, not a Mafia daughter marked for retrieval. Not a girl who'd sworn she'd never let blood define her again. She burst out onto the main road and almost collided with a black SUV pulling up to the curb. A man stepped out, tall, sharp-jawed, dressed in charcoal, eyes burning with a quiet, controlled fury. Lucian Vieri. He didn't blink when she nearly slammed into his chest. He caught her shoulders, steady but unyielding, and looked at her like he'd already been searching for her. What happened? He asked, voice cutting through the chaos around them. She shook her head, breath jolting through her body, hands trembling so violently she tried hiding them behind her back. She couldn't form words. Not yet. Not with death still reaching out from the alley behind her. Lucian glanced past her, scanning the street with the practiced ease of a man raised in danger. He didn't see the enforcer yet. That meant the man wasn't far. Get in the car, Lucian said, not loud, not harsh, but final. I have to get back to work, she stuttered, though her legs felt like melting wax. You're bleeding, he said. She blinked and looked down. A thin streak of red ran down her arm. She hadn't felt it. Adrenaline had buried the pain. Lucian placed a hand lightly on her back, guiding her toward the SUV. It wasn't possessive. It wasn't forceful. It was protective in a way that made her chest tighten painfully, because she wasn't used to anyone caring whether she lived or died. But before she could step inside, the enforcer's voice echoed from the alley entrance. There you are. Lucian's hand tightened just slightly, just enough for her to feel he'd already shifted into something dangerous. Now, he said sharply, pushing her inside the SUV. She fell into the back seat, breath hitching, hands gripping the leather as the door slammed shut. Through the tinted window, she watched Lucian turn slowly to face the enforcer. She couldn't hear the words, but she saw the tension. Lucian standing tall, calm as ice, while the enforcer barked something and pointed in her direction. Lucian didn't move, didn't flinch. Then the enforcer reached for his gun. It happened fast. 1 second, Lucian was standing with his hands loose at his sides. The next, two of his men burst from the driver's and passenger's seats, shoved the enforcer back, and pinned him against the wall before his weapon even cleared his jacket. Lucian stepped closer, looked him dead in the eye, and said something that made the man's face lose all color. The enforcer's bravado evaporated. In seconds, he was disarmed, breathless, and dragged out of sight. Lucian returned to the SUV, opened the back door, and slid inside next to Mara. He shut the door gently, as if the world outside hadn't just tilted sideways. "Tell me why one of Doyle's men is chasing you," he said. She swallowed hard. Her throat burned. She wanted to lie. She wanted to pretend this was all a misunderstanding. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking, and her voice cracked before she even spoke. I don't know," she whispered. Lucian studied her. He wasn't the kind of man you could lie to. His eyes were too sharp for that, too calculating. "Try again," he said softly. That softness broke her more than any threat would have. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said, breath trembling. "I left. That's it. I walked away from my family, and that should have been my right. I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't take anything. I just left." "And now they want you back," Lucian murmured. "They don't want me back," she corrected, voice strangled. "They want control. They want obedience. They want a daughter who nods and smiles and marries whoever they tell her to marry." Lucian exhaled through his nose, thoughtful. "And what do you want?" "To live," she said. "On my terms. Without running. Without being hunted like an animal." He didn't speak for a moment. The SUV pulled into traffic, moving through Raventon's nighttime maze. Mara pressed her forehead to the cool glass, trying to calm the firestorm inside her. Lucian leaned back, watching her with a gaze she didn't understand yet. Not pity, not judgment, not curiosity. Something else entirely. When they reached a quieter street, the SUV slowed and stopped beside a tall limestone building lit by warm yellow lights. "You're coming upstairs," Lucian said. "I can't stay with you," she protested instantly. "People will talk. Your family will." "My family will do nothing except listen," he said. "And you're not going back to your apartment tonight. Doyle's men won't stop. You know that." Her breath shuddered. He was right. Every muscle in her body knew he was right. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. Lucian looked at her like the answer should have been obvious. "Because you helped my mother," he said. Her throat tightened. Serafina Vieri, the woman Mara had met only 3 nights ago at the restaurant, had been gentle, patient, warm, deaf, but expressive. And Mara, without thinking, had signed to her in her native dialect. It had shocked the entire Vieri family. "She was happy that night," Lucian added quietly. "Maybe happier than I've seen her in years. That matters to me." "But I didn't do anything special," Mara said. Lucian leaned in slightly, eyes locking onto hers. "You made her feel seen, and I don't forget things like that." Heat rushed through her chest. Not romantic heat. Something deeper. Something like safety. Something like belonging. Something she had never let herself want. But the moment shattered when Lucian's phone buzzed. He answered with a clipped, "What?" A pause. Then his expression changed. Sharp, cold, lethal. "When?" he demanded. Mara's stomach dropped. She didn't need to hear the other side of the conversation. She knew that tone. Something terrible had happened. Lucian ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket. Mara, he said quietly, there was an attack tonight. She felt her body go rigid. Where? She whispered. Lucian held her gaze a moment too long. On your youngest brother. Her breath caught, but no sound came out. Her vision blurred, the world tilting in on itself. No, she whispered. No, no, that can't be. Liam wouldn't. He's just a kid. He wouldn't be involved in anything. He wasn't involved, Lucian said. He was targeted. Tears spilled before she even felt them forming. Her chest caved inward as she shook her head violently. Who did it? She choked out. Lucian hesitated, and that hesitation made her blood run cold. Mara, he said, voice controlled. It wasn't my family. Then who? Lucian met her eyes with a heaviness she didn't know how to face. Cormac Doyle. Her world stopped. Mara didn't realize she'd stopped breathing until her vision tunneled. A ringing filled her ears, drowning out the hum of the city, the engine, even Lucian's steady presence beside her. She felt herself drifting out of her own body, watching everything from somewhere far away, where none of this could be real. Why would he hurt Liam? She whispered, her voice barely recognizable. He's innocent. He was never part of any of it. Lucian leaned forward, elbows on his knees, studying her. He didn't speak immediately. He let her struggle through the disbelief, the horror, the grief tightening her chest until she couldn't tell where the pain began and where it ended. Mara, he said quietly, Doyle is making a move, a very big one. And your brother was leverage. Her stomach flipped. Leverage for what? Lucian paused as though searching for the least devastating version of the truth. To destabilize your father, to make him vulnerable, to make him desperate. And then? She asked, though she already knew. Her hands twisted in her lap. And then, to take control. She looked down, vision swimming, heart trembling violently inside her ribs. No, she said again, softer. That doesn't make sense. If Doyle wants power, why would he need me? Why would he send men after me tonight? Lucian watched her without blinking. Because you're the one thing your father can't replace. Mara froze. The words seeped into her like poison. Her father hadn't cared about her when she left. He'd said she was a disgrace. He'd said she was nothing to the family name. He'd said she was disposable. But she wasn't disposable. Not to Doyle. Not to any man hungry for power. She was a bargaining chip. A weapon. A bloodline. A pawn. And Doyle wanted to be the one who owned her. A surge of nausea hit so fast she doubled over, hand clamped against her mouth. Lucian reached out but stopped just short of touching her, as if afraid the wrong gesture might shatter her entirely. She sucked in a shaky breath. Liam, is he alive? Yes, Lucian answered instantly. But he's unconscious and under watch. Relief crashed through her so hard she nearly cried again. I need to see him. Please, Lucian, take me to him. You can't, Lucian said. Her head snapped up. What do you mean I can't? I mean, he said, voice steady but firm. The hospital is surrounded by your father's men, by Doyle's men, by independent predators looking to pick a side. If you walk in there now, you won't walk out. She stared at him, chest heaving. I don't care. He's my brother. And you think Liam would want you killed trying to reach him? Lucian shot back. She flinched like he'd slapped her. Tears pricked her eyes again, hot and humiliating. Lucian sighed, softer this time. Mara, listen to me. Doyle wants you alive. But he doesn't care in what condition. If he gets his hands on you, he'll use you as leverage to force your father into submission. And once your father gives in, Doyle will kill him anyway. You know that. She hated that he was right. She hated that Lucian was the one saying it. The man she barely knew. The man she didn't choose to trust, but somehow did anyway. Mara closed her eyes. What am I supposed to do? Stay alive, Lucian said. Long enough to stop this. I don't know how to stop anything, she whispered. Lucian tilted his head slightly. But you do know Doyle. You grew up around him. You know his patterns, his weaknesses, his habits. You know who he trusts and who he fears. That makes you more valuable than you think. I don't want to be valuable, she muttered. I know, Lucian said gently, but sometimes survival starts with accepting the role we didn't want. He reached for her then, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand rested lightly on her shoulder, warm and grounding. We're not your enemies, he said. My family, my mother, we are on your side. Let us help you. For a moment, Mara wanted nothing more than to fall into that safety, to believe in it without question. But fear still wrapped around her ribs like barbed wire. Your family isn't safe because of me, she said. Doyle, he won't stop. And once he realizes I'm with you, he already knows. Lucian cut in. Her entire body went cold. What? He knows, Lucian repeated. He was watching the restaurant. He knew you'd run somewhere. And he knows people run to whoever offers protection. He'll come after you, Mara whispered. Lucian's lips twitched just slightly, not quite amusement, not quite disdain. He's welcome to try. Despite the fear clawing at her, something inside Mara steadied at those words. Because Lucian didn't say them arrogantly, he said them like a fact. Like he'd already prepared for this. The SUV pulled into an underground entrance beneath the limestone building. Security checked the vehicle, doors sealed, gates locked behind them. Lucian stepped out first and offered his hand. Mara hesitated, only a second, then took it. His grip was strong, warm, steady. Inside the elevator, Mara stared at the polished metal walls, her reflection looking pale, shaken, but not broken. Not yet. Lucian's phone vibrated again. He frowned at the screen. Mara swallowed. Bad news? It's information, Lucian said. About Doyle. Her heart quickened. What kind? Lucian slid the phone into his pocket. The kind you should hear sitting down. The elevator doors opened into a tranquil, dimly lit penthouse foyer. Soft yellow lamps, polished floors, a long hallway leading to the main living area. It was quiet. Too quiet for a home belonging to a man like Lucian Vieri. Then she noticed the security cameras, the reinforced frames. Subtle danger everywhere. Lucian gestured toward a leather couch. Mara sat, but her legs bounced uncontrollably, nerves ricocheting through her system. Lucian stood in front of her, arms crossed. Mara, Doyle is planning a coup. She sucked in a breath. I guess that. No. Not a small power shift. Not an internal betrayal. This is bigger. He took a step closer. He's forming alliances outside the Ellison family. Eastern circles. Unstable elements. People who don't just want territory. They want a war. Mara shook her head. That doesn't make sense. My father would never allow it. That's the problem, Lucian replied. Your father is in the way? She felt sick. So Doyle is going to kill him. Yes, Lucian said, and then he'll use you to legitimize the takeover. She stared at him, horrified. He wants to force me to stand beside him. Lucian's jaw tightened. He wants to force you to marry him. The room spun. No, she whispered. No. Doyle's twice my age, that's insane. It's strategic, Lucian said. He wants the Ellison name tied to him, and you are the only daughter. Mara pressed her hands over her face, trembling violently. Her voice broke through her fingers. I'd rather die. You won't, Lucian said instantly. She dropped her hands, meeting his eyes with a storm of fear and fury tangled together. You don't know that. I do, he said. Because the moment Doyle made you his target, he made you mine too. She blinked. What does that mean? It means, Lucian said slowly, I'm not letting him touch you. The intensity in his eyes made her pulse skitter. Not romantic intensity. Something deeper. Something scarier. Something that said he'd burn cities before letting harm come to her. Before she could respond, a soft chime echoed through the penthouse. Mara jumped. Lucian raised a hand. It's just my mother. Relief washed over Mara's face, and she hated how quickly she grabbed onto it. Serafina Vieri entered the room with the grace of someone who'd been elegant her entire life. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled into a low bun. She wore a soft cream sweater and gentle eyes that immediately softened further when she saw Mara. Mara stood instantly. Serafina touched her fingertips to her own lips, then to Mara's cheek, an expression of comfort. Mara felt her throat tighten. Lucian signed quickly, explaining. Serafina's face crumpled in sympathy. She stepped forward and pulled Mara into a gentle, warm hug. Mara broke. Tears slid down her cheeks silently as she clung to a woman she'd only known for 3 days, yet somehow trusted more than anyone she'd grown up with. Serafina pulled back, signed something softly, and Lucian translated. She says you're safe now, and that you don't have to face any of this alone. Mara wiped her face, breath shaking. I don't want to bring danger to your family. Lucian stepped beside his mother. We know the risk. We accept it. Serafina touched Mara's cheek again, smiling gently. For the first time in hours, Mara inhaled a breath that didn't hurt. Then Lucian's phone buzzed again. He checked it. Every muscle in his body went tense. Mara's heart plummeted. What now? Lucian looked up, eyes sharp. Doyle knows you're here. Mara's pulse stopped. It didn't slow, didn't race. It simply froze in her chest like her heart forgot what it was supposed to do. Lucian slipped his phone into his pocket, already moving across the room with purpose, his entire posture snapping into alertness. How? She whispered, voice barely a breath. Lucian didn't turn as he answered. Because the enforcer you ran from wasn't alone. He had backup. They followed us here. Mara swallowed hard. Then they know where you live. They knew before tonight, Lucian said. Doyle's people have been watching the Vieri family for months, waiting for an opportunity. And I gave them one, she said, the words cracking apart in her throat. I led them right to you. Lucian finally turned toward her, eyes burning. You didn't lead them anywhere. They were coming regardless. You just gave them a reason to rush. That didn't make her feel better. If anything, it made her stomach twist harder. Lucian moved to a keypad hidden behind a framed painting and entered a rapid sequence. Metal shutters slid into place over the windows, locking the penthouse into a fortified shell. Mara flinched as each shutter clanged shut. Lucian, she said, shaking. Your mother is safe, Lucian said. I'll get her out through the lower exit in a moment. Serafina stepped forward and touched Mara's hand gently, giving a reassuring smile despite the tension tightening the room. She signed to her son sharply. Lucian answered just as quickly. Mara watched their hands move, frightened by the urgency she didn't fully understand. What did she say? Mara asked. Lucian faced her. She wants you kept far from the windows and doors. She doesn't want you panicking. She's telling me not to panic, Mara repeated, laughing once, a dry, broken sound. Lucian, I am panic. Lucian stepped close, his voice dropping low. Mara, look at me. She did. His eyes held hers with quiet force. You're safe. You keep saying that, she whispered. Because it's true, he said. And how long will it stay true? She asked. Lucian didn't answer immediately. He reached up, brushed her hair from her face with a touch that felt far more tender than the moment allowed, then turned away and began issuing orders to his men through a quick series of texts. Her spine tingled where his fingers had touched her. She hated that in the middle of a looming attack she felt something. Warmth. Heat. Confusion. She didn't have room in her life for confusion. Not now. Not ever. A heavy thud shook the floor above them. Mara jerked. What was that? Lucian's expression sharpened. Scouting drone, they're testing the entry points. Her voice cracked. They're coming inside, aren't they? Not while I'm breathing, Lucian muttered. Before Mara could respond, the elevator dinged. Serafina flinched. Lucian pulled Mara behind him just as two armed guards rushed out. His men, not Doyle's. They exchanged rapid information with Lucian, but Mara only caught pieces. Roof access compromised. Thermal scans show movement. East side stairwell breached. Breached. The word stabbed through her. Mara grabbed Lucian's arm. We need to leave, all of us, now. I can't leave this floor undefended, Lucian said. This isn't your fight, she snapped. Lucian met her gaze head-on. The moment Doyle marked you, it became my fight. The words wrapped around her like an invisible tether, pulling her closer to something she didn't dare understand. She stepped back quickly, breath shaking. Another impact rattled the window shutters, hard enough that Mara screamed. Lucian caught her before she stumbled. Lucian, I can't, she gasped, panic cracking through her like lightning. I can't be trapped again, I can't. You're not trapped, he said firmly. You're protected. It feels the same. Lucian took her face gently between his hands, steady, warm, grounding. Mara, breathe. She tried. It came out jagged. Lucian lowered his forehead to hers, closing the distance until she couldn't focus on anything but him, his warmth, his steadiness. You are safe, he whispered. Right here, right now, with me. Her breath stuttered, but for the first time in minutes, it didn't hurt. She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his presence pull her back from the edge. Another thud hit the shutters. Mara buried her face in his chest, trembling uncontrollably. Lucian wrapped an arm around her shoulders, his other hand cradling the back of her head. His heartbeat was steady, strong. It grounded her. We need to move, one of the guards said urgently. Lucian lifted his head and nodded, releasing Mara only enough to keep her hand in his. Follow me. Mara didn't hesitate. She couldn't. Fear shoved her forward. Lucian guided her and Serafina down a hall toward a narrow staircase disguised behind a panel. The air grew cooler, heavier, hum of machinery filling the silence. A reinforced door sealed behind them. Where does this go? Mara asked, voice shaky but controlled now. A private exit that leads 2 blocks underground, Lucian said. You and my mother will take it. Mara stopped walking. You're not coming? Lucian faced her calmly. Not yet. Lucian. No, she whispered, grabbing his arm. You can't fight them alone. I won't be alone, he said. But Doyle's men think you're still upstairs. If I leave now, they'll tear this building apart trying to find you. But you could die? She said, voice cracking. Lucian's expression softened, but only slightly. Not tonight. How do you know? Because I haven't made Doyle regret breathing yet, he replied. Despite the fear clawing at her, a laugh broke from Mara, shaky, breathless, but real. Lucian lifted her chin with one finger. Mara, listen to me. You are the reason Doyle is acting this fast. You're the linchpin. He needs you to control your father. If he doesn't have you, he loses leverage. That means the safest place you can be is gone. I don't want to leave you here, she whispered. You won't be gone long, Lucian said, but right now, I need you alive. Serafina touched Mara's shoulder softly, signing something urgent. Lucian translated. She says she'll go with you. You won't be alone. Mara swallowed, nodding. But before she followed Serafina down the stairs, she turned back. Lucian. He paused. Why are you risking all this? For me? Lucian's jaw flexed. Because you made my mother feel understood. Because you deserve a life that isn't defined by fear. Because I won't let Doyle turn you into a pawn. And then he stepped closer, inches from her, eyes burning with a dangerous, unspoken truth. And because, he murmured, I don't want anything to happen to you. Her breath caught. Before she could respond, the entire building shook with a violent explosion. Lucian pushed Mara and Serafina back, shielding them as dust rained from the ceiling. His guard rushed down the hall. They breached the stairwell. We need you upstairs now. Lucian grabbed Mara's wrist one last time, pressed something cold and metallic into her palm. A slim keycard. When you reach the end of the tunnel, take the first car. Don't look back. Don't stop. Drive until my men intercept you. Lucian? He cupped the back of her neck gently, forehead almost touching hers. Stay alive, Mara. She didn't trust her voice, so she nodded. Lucian stepped away, turning into a shadow of authority and fury as he sprinted down the hall with his men. Mara watched him go, her heart ripping in a way she'd never expected. Serafina tugged her arm, urging her down the secret staircase. Mara looked one last time toward the chaos unfolding above them. Please be careful, she whispered, and then she followed Serafina into the dark. The staircase felt endless, narrow, cold, and echoing each hurried step like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Mara's legs shook with every descent, her hand gripping the railing as Serafina guided her with quick, urgent gestures. The older woman's face remained calm, but her movements betrayed the same tension gripping Mara's spine. A muffled boom shuddered through the walls. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Mara covered her mouth to stifle a cry. Serafina squeezed her shoulder gently, signing again with firm, reassuring motions. Mara didn't catch the words, but she understood the intent. Keep moving. Stay strong. Lucian needs you safe. Lucian. Her chest tightened painfully. She could still feel the warmth of his hands on her face, the low intensity of his voice when he told her to breathe. She had barely known him, and yet somehow her entire world now felt tied to whether he survived the next 10 minutes. A second explosion vibrated the metal railing beneath her fingers. This time, Mara could no longer pretend her panic wasn't clawing up her throat. He's up there, she whispered. They're up there. And he... Serafina stopped abruptly and turned to her, pressing a steadying hand to her cheek. She signed slowly, deliberately, her expressive eyes holding Mara's with unexpected fierceness. Mara didn't understand the exact words, but she felt the message like a weight settling in her lungs. He's fighting for you, so don't make his fight meaningless. Serafina gave a small nod, confirming it. Mara swallowed hard, forcing her trembling legs to keep moving. Okay, she murmured. Okay. The stairwell spiraled down one more level before ending at a reinforced steel door. Serafina swiped a concealed sensor and the lock disengaged with a heavy click. They stepped through into a dim underground passage smelling faintly of metal and ozone. Long pipes hugged the ceiling. The narrow corridor stretched forward in a straight line. But what made Mara's skin crawl wasn't the emptiness. It was the silence. The explosions above disappeared. No distant shouts. No gunfire. Nothing. Silence was worse than noise. Silence meant something was changing. Serafina gently nudged her forward. Mara forced her feet to move, one step after the other, breathing in short, quick bursts. Halfway through the corridor, her phone buzzed. Mara froze. Serafina spun toward her, tense, eyes sharp. Mara glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Her blood turned to ice. No, she whispered. No, no, no. She hit decline, hand shaking violently. The phone buzzed again instantly. Same number. Serafina stepped closer, signing fast, asking if it was Lucian. "It's not him," Mara choked out. "It's Doyle. It has to be." A third buzz. She declined it again, fingers slick with sweat. The corridor suddenly felt smaller, tighter, harder to breathe in. Another buzz. Serafina gently took the phone from her hand, switched it to silent, and held it close against her chest with a resolute shake of her head. Mara nodded, breathing unevenly. They pushed forward. After several minutes, they reached an industrial metal hatch at the end of the corridor. Serafina gestured for Mara to lift the keycard Lucian had given her. Her hand didn't feel like her own. It trembled too violently, but she swiped it anyway. The locks clanked open. A sharp draft of cool night air rushed in. They emerged into a vast underground loading bay, lit by a few blinking safety lights. 4 identical black SUVs were lined up, engines cold. Serafina pointed to the first one. Mara climbed into the driver's seat, gripping the wheel so tight her knuckles bleached white. Serafina moved around to the passenger side. A gunshot cracked. Mara screamed. Serafina froze mid-step, eyes wide. Another shot hit the concrete near her foot, ricocheting with a vicious metallic ping. "Mara, get down!" Mara didn't know where the voice came from, only that it was unfamiliar and hostile. Serafina dove behind the SUV as a figure stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. A tall man, pale, hollow-eyed, with a pistol aimed directly at them. Not one of Lucian's, not law enforcement, Doyle's men. Mara ducked inside the SUV, heart exploding against her ribs. Her fingers scrambled for the ignition. Nothing. No key. No button. Just a silent wheel. "No, no, no. Lucian said it would start. What did I miss?" Another shot slammed into the door. Mara flinched so hard she smacked her head against the window. The gunman shouted, "Mara Castillo, step out now, and I won't shoot the woman." Serafina's breath hitched from her hiding place. She didn't need to hear the words to know the meaning. Mara's vision blurred. He knew her name. He knew their location. He knew she was defenseless. "Come out!" the gunman barked. "Doyle wants you alive. Don't make me ruin that." Mara's pulse roared in her ears. Alive. Not safe. Just alive enough to be used. The realization tore through her. Her father wasn't the only leverage Doyle wanted. She was leverage against Lucian, too. Her stomach heaved. The gunman cocked his weapon, stepping closer. "Last chance." Mara's breath caught. Then something slammed onto the gunman from above. A black-clad shape dropped off the loading bay catwalk, tackling the man violently to the floor. The pistol skittered across the concrete. Mara gasped as the attacker, a figure wearing Lucian's crest, drove an elbow into the gunman's jaw. More figures descended from the shadows behind crates and stairwells. Lucian's men, 3 of them. The gunman struggled, snarling, trying to reach a knife strapped at his ankle. One of Lucian's men kicked his arm away and pinned him hard. The fight was quick, brutal, efficient. Within seconds, the gunman was unconscious. Serafina rushed to Mara's door, signing frantically. Mara fumbled the lock open. I almost thought... He almost... Serafina cupped her face with trembling hands, relief softening her features. Before Mara could breathe, again, one of Lucian's men ran up to her door. "You need to move," he said urgently. "We're getting you out right now. The car starts with this." He tossed a small magnetic fob into her hands. Mara's chest tightened. Lucian hadn't forgotten. He'd simply assumed she'd be too panicked to search for the ignition slot. The guard pointed to a slot beneath the steering wheel. "Insert, hold for 2 seconds, then drive. Stay on the marked route until we intercept." Mara nodded, though her hands were shaking so badly the fob nearly slipped. The guard leaned in. "Lucian is holding the top floors, but the breach is getting worse. He'll follow once you're clear." Mara felt her stomach drop. "Is he hurt?" He's Lucian Vieri, the guard said simply. He doesn't get hurt. The way he said it didn't ease her. It terrified her more. Serafina climbed in beside her, and the guard slammed the door. Mara shoved the fob in. The engine roared alive. She gripped the wheel, breath shaking like a leaf in a storm. For a heartbeat, she hesitated, looking up at the concrete ceiling as if she could somehow see him through it. Lucian. Please be okay, she whispered. She pressed the accelerator. The SUV shot forward into the darkness of the exit tunnel, but as they sped away, Mara didn't notice the small red dot blinking on the back bumper. A tracker. Her escape was no longer clean. Doyle's men would follow, and Lucian wasn't there to stop them. The tunnel stretched endlessly ahead, illuminated by a dim string of overhead industrial lights. The SUV's engine echoed through the confined space, mixing with Mara's trembling breaths and Serafina's anxious glances at the rear window. Mara kept both hands locked on the steering wheel, knuckles bone white. Her mind wasn't on the road. It was 3 floors above the penthouse, where Lucian was fighting an army alone. Please be alive. Please be alive. The tunnel's incline steepened. A faint glow became visible at the far end, the exit to an abandoned maintenance yard. Mara forced her foot to stay steady on the accelerator. But then Serafina tapped her arm sharply and pointed at the rear camera screen. Mara's heart stopped. 2 black SUVs were speeding into the tunnel after them, Doyle's men. "Oh, God!" Mara gasped, gripping the wheel tighter. Serafina signed rapidly, her motions frantic but precise. Mara only caught a few familiar signs: fast, danger, don't slow. Mara swallowed hard. I won't. I promise." But she could barely feel her legs. Adrenaline had numbed her entire body until it felt like she was driving someone else's hands, someone else's panic. The rear vehicles gained speed. They were closing the gap far too quickly. Serafina grabbed the glove compartment, yanked it open, and pulled out a small tablet device with a blinking red interface. She turned it toward Mara. A tracker signal. The foreign blinking dot at the back of their vehicle pulsed like a heartbeat. Mara nearly lost control of the wheel. "Oh my God, they put a tracker on us." Serafina nodded grimly. "But how? When?" The older woman signed sharply. "Don't think. Drive." Mara didn't need the translation this time. She floored the accelerator. The SUV lurched forward with a roar. The pursuing vehicles raced faster, headlights glowing like predatory eyes in the narrow tunnel. Serafina typed rapidly into the tablet. The blinking dot flickered, jittered, then turned solid red again. Failed. Mara's breath hitched. "You can't jam it?" Serafina shook her head. The tablet's interface displayed a map of the tunnel, their location flashing in real time. The tracker wasn't a cheap device. It was military-grade. High-level encryption, unbreakable without specialized equipment, and Lucian wasn't here to override any of it. Mara's nails dug into the steering wheel. "They're going to catch us." Serafina grabbed her wrist firmly. "No." Her gaze didn't falter. "Drive." Mara looked ahead. They were seconds from the tunnel exit now. The faint night air seeped in through the vents, sharp and cold. As they burst into the open yard, the surrounding darkness swallowed them, moonlight casting long shadows across abandoned shipping containers and rusted rail tracks. "Where do I go?" Mara shouted. Serafina pointed straight ahead. "Are you sure? What if it's a dead—" A gunshot cracked behind them. The rear window spiderwebbed instantly. Mara screamed, ducking instinctively. The SUV swerved dangerously, tires screeching against the cracked pavement. More shots followed, bullets pinging against the armored exterior. "Why are they shooting if Doyle wants me alive?" she choked out. Serafina signed quickly. "They're shooting to stop you, not to kill." Mara's pulse hammered as she veered around a shipping container. The pursuing SUVs skidded around the corner, still gaining on them. The exit on the far end of the yard was blocked by a chain-link gate. Mara slammed her foot down. Serafina braced herself. The SUV plowed through the gate with a violent crash, metal shrieking against metal as the fence tore apart. The vehicle jerked forward, nearly fishtailing, but Mara wrestled control back. The road beyond the gate dropped downhill sharply. They barreled down it at dangerous speed, the city lights flickering into view below like scattered stars. Mara gritted her teeth. "Where are Lucian's men? They were supposed to intercept us." Serafina tapped the tablet. A weak signal pulsed on the map. Lucian's convoy, but it was distant. Too distant. Her throat tightened. No, 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 they're too far. The SUVs behind them surged forward, their engines screaming like enraged animals. Serafina grabbed the dashboard handle and signed forcefully. "Hold steady." Mara wanted to protest, but there was no breath left to do it with. The road straightened, then twisted sharply, into an underpass lit only by flickering street lamps. Their SUV entered the shadows. And a vehicle shot out from a side street directly ahead. Mara gasped and spun the wheel. The SUV swerved, barely missing the incoming car before slamming into a concrete barrier. The impact rattled her skull. Pain flashed down her spine. Serafina cried out in silent agony as she struck her shoulder against the door. But the SUV kept moving. Barely. The pursuing vehicles screeched to a halt behind them, then accelerated again. "They're not stopping," Mara whispered hoarsely. "They're never going to stop." A voice crackled through the SUV's radio. "Vehicle 4. Respond. This is command." Mara startled. "Who?" Serafina lunged for the radio and pressed the button. Static. Weak signal. "Repeat. Convoy delayed. Hold position." Mara grabbed the radio. "Lucian, are you there? Please, tell me you're there." Only static answered. Her eyes blurred with tears she refused to shed. "Please answer me." Nothing. "He's not—" Her voice broke. "He's not responding." Serafina pulled her hand away gently and signed with shaking fingers. "He is alive. He will respond. Not dead." Mara nodded, even though she wasn't sure she believed it. The pursuing vehicles rounded the corner behind them, closing the distance faster than she could accelerate. Serafina tapped the map again, zooming out. 2 routes ahead. Left, toward a residential district, populated, more traffic. Right, toward an industrial zone, empty, isolated, dangerous. Mara hesitated. Serafina pointed right. "What?" "No, people are on the left. We could vanish into traffic." Serafina shook her head sharply. "Left has choke points. They'll trap us. Right is open. Keep going." Mara inhaled shakily. "Okay. Right." She swerved sharply into the industrial zone street. The SUVs followed immediately. No hesitation, no diversion. They weren't just following the tracker. They were locked onto her. Her father hadn't just angered Doyle. She had. Mara gripped the wheel harder. Lucian had thrown his life into the fire for her. Serafina trusted her with her own safety. She refused to be the reason either of them died. Her fear hardened into something sharper, clearer. Resolve. "Hold on," she said through clenched teeth. Serafina braced herself. Mara slammed the accelerator. The SUV surged into the darkness. Behind them, 2 more vehicles turned onto the road from the opposite direction, blocking escape forward. Mara gasped. "No, no, no, there's too many—" Trapped, surrounded, nowhere to turn. Her pulse screamed. A voice suddenly cut through the static in the radio. Faint, distorted but unmistakable. "Mara, don't stop." "Lucian." Her eyes widened, breath punching from her chest. "Lucian! Lucian, where are you?" "Mara, listen!" His voice broke through again, rough and strained, like he was speaking while fighting. "Keep driving. Don't brake." Tears blurred her vision. "Lucian, I can't. There's too many—" Drive, he growled. Now. She obeyed, because she didn't know how to do anything else. As she slammed the accelerator, a deafening horn blared, and a massive armored transport truck barreled out of the intersecting street behind the pursuing SUVs. The Vieri convoy. They hit Doyle's vehicles like a hammer. Metal crunched. Engines screamed. One SUV flipped violently into the air. Another spun out, crashing into a lamppost. Serafina gasped silently. Mara's heart leapt into her throat, but the relief was short-lived. 3 more enemy SUVs remained, and they weren't slowing. Lucian's voice crackled again, low and urgent. Mara, brace yourself. For what? She didn't have time to ask. The road ahead ended abruptly in a construction site, and the pursuers were accelerating. Faster, faster, too fast. Serafina grabbed Mara's hand tightly, her nails digging into her skin, her signing hand shaking uncontrollably. Mara's blood turned cold. They weren't trying to capture her anymore. They were trying to ram her, to flip her, to break her. The SUV jolted forward, straight toward the edge of the unfinished overpass. The unfinished overpass loomed ahead like the open mouth of some giant beast waiting to swallow them whole. The asphalt ended abruptly, broken rebar jutting out like metal claws, and below it, nothing but a 40-foot drop into a pit of concrete and steel scaffolding. Mara's throat closed. "We're not going to make it," she whispered. Serafina signed frantically, her hands trembling. "Floor it." Mara couldn't breathe. "Serafina, if we hit that edge—" Serafina slammed her palm onto Mara's hand, forcing the accelerator down. The SUV screamed forward. The enemy vehicles surged behind them, headlights burning through the night like wolves closing in for the kill. Mara's pulse pounded against her ribs so violently she could barely see, her vision narrowing into a tunnel of panic and adrenaline. Lucian's voice cracked over the radio again, distorted, desperate. "Mara, jump the divider." Her mind blanked. "What?" "Lucian, what divider?" "On your left. Don't look. Just turn." She looked anyway. A thin concrete divider separated the overpass lanes, ending abruptly at the break. If she hit it at the wrong angle, the SUV would flip. If she hit it right, she might survive. Maybe. Mara sucked in a shaking breath, tears streaking her face. "Serafina, hold on!" Serafina grabbed the dashboard and braced. Mara jerked the wheel left. The SUV slammed into the divider, tires screaming as it lifted onto 2 wheels. Air ripped from Mara's lungs. The vehicle teetered for a horrifying heartbeat, then slammed down on the opposite side of the divider and fishtailed violently. Mara fought the wheel with everything she had, arms straining, pulse roaring, barely keeping them from spinning. Out into the drop. Behind them, one of Doyle's SUVs clipped the divider at the wrong angle and flipped, metal twisting in midair before crashing onto the pavement upside down. Mara didn't get to breathe, because the remaining 2 accelerated, refusing to fall back. Serafina tapped the window, pointing to a narrow maintenance ramp spiraling downward along the side of the overpass structure. Safe enough to get off the collapsing road, deadly if approached too fast. Mara knew instantly, if she missed that ramp even by an inch, they'd go over the edge. Lucian's voice broke through again. "Mara, take the ramp, now!" Mara jerked the wheel right. The SUV skidded, swung toward the ramp. A pursuing vehicle rammed them from behind. Mara screamed as the SUV lurched sideways, tires losing grip, the world tilting. Serafina grabbed the wheel too, adding her weight to stabilize them. The ramp loomed closer. Mara slammed the brakes just enough to catch traction, then wrenched the wheel at the perfect moment. The SUV hit the ramp hard, bounced, then began spiraling downward in tight, dizzying circles. Mara gasped for air. Serafina clung to the side handle with white fingers. Above them, one of the enemy SUVs failed to slow in time and shot straight past the ramp, flying off the edge of the incomplete overpass into the pit below. Mara's stomach turned. That left one. The remaining SUV slowed, swerved, then turned onto the ramp after them. Mara pushed the accelerator again. They don't stop. They just don't stop. Serafina signed sharply. Focus. She tried. But her hands were slick with sweat and shaking so hard she could barely hold the wheel steady. The ramp was narrowing, spiraling lower and lower into darkness, lit only by a few flickering construction lamps. The enemy vehicle roared behind them, close enough that Mara could see its grille in the rearview mirror. Her breath caught. Serafina. They're gaining. Serafina reached over and pressed her palm firmly to Mara's shoulder. You can. Mara's chest tightened. No one had ever looked at her like she was capable of anything. Her father always treated her like a liability, her ex like she was fragile glass, her co-workers like she was invisible. But Serafina? She looked at Mara like she was already someone brave, someone worth fighting for. Mara inhaled sharply, nodded once. She floored the accelerator again. The ramp's final turn approached, a hard left into an open lot filled with construction debris. As she whipped around the curve, the enemy SUV clipped the guardrail and scraped violently, slowing just a fraction. But not enough to stop. They burst into the open lot. Mara swerved between piles of metal beams and concrete blocks, tires crunching on loose gravel. Serafina shouted soundlessly, pointing to a stack of heavy cargo containers arranged in a staggered line. A narrow gap cut between them, barely wide enough for a single SUV. Mara's instinct screamed no, but she trusted Serafina more than she trusted herself. She aimed for the gap. The SUV squeezed through with inches to spare, sparks flying as the mirrors grazed the metal edges. Behind them, the pursuing SUV tried to follow and clip the container. The metal beast ricocheted violently sideways, smashing into another stack with thunderous force. Containers toppled like dominoes onto its roof, crushing the vehicle beneath tons of steel. Silence. Mara's breath stuttered, then broke into sobs she couldn't stop. Her hand slipped from the wheel as her entire body collapsed inward, trembling so violently she couldn't hold herself upright. Serafina reached over, pulling her into a tight, grounding embrace. Mara cried into her shoulder, voice cracking. I thought we were going to die. Serafina stroked her hair gently, her touch warm and steady, her heartbeat calm against Mara's. They stayed like that for several moments, breathing, trembling, existing. Then the radio crackled again. Mara. Lucian's voice. Rough, breathless, but alive. Mara jerked upright, grabbing the radio with shaking fingers. I'm here. Lucian, I'm here. You made it? He rasped. Thank God. She wiped her tears, breath hitching. Where are you? Are you hurt? Please tell me. Mara. His tone shifted, gentle, grounding, the way he had spoken when she'd panicked in the bedroom. Listen to me. I'm coming to you. She closed her eyes, relief washing over her so intensely she almost collapsed again. Lucian. I thought I told you, he said, voice low. I don't die that easily. Serafina gave a small smile, signing something teasing. What did she say? Mara asked weakly. Lucian chuckled softly over the radio. She said she told you so. Despite everything, despite the terror still knotted inside her, Mara laughed. A tiny broken sound, but real. Lucian's tone shifted again, softening. Stay where you are. The area should be clear now. I'll be there in 2 minutes. Please hurry, Mara whispered. I'm already on my way. The radio clicked off. Serafina squeezed her hand gently. Mara stared ahead at the path they'd come through, heart slowing, breath finally beginning to stabilize. The night was quiet now, except for the distant hum of approaching engines, friendly ones this time. She leaned her head back against the seat, tears drying slowly on her cheeks. She had survived. Serafina had survived. Lucian was alive. For the first time in years, Mara felt something fierce growing in her chest. Not fear, not shame, not helplessness. Strength. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know what Doyle would do, or what chaos would come when Lucian arrived, or how her father would react when he learned what she'd risked. But she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't running anymore. The SUV's headlights caught movement at the far edge of the lot. Lucian stepped into view, dust-covered, bruised, blood on his cheek, but standing tall, alive. Mara's breath caught. Serafina smiled knowingly. Mara opened the door and stumbled out, legs still shaky. Lucian broke into a run. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She ran too. They collided halfway, Lucian's arms wrapping around her so tightly she felt her ribs strain. She buried her face in his neck, sobbing with relief as he lifted her feet off the ground. "I thought I lost you," he whispered. "I thought you died," she breathed. "Not tonight," he whispered. "Not ever if I can help it." She clung to him, shaking. Serafina approached slowly, smiling softly before giving them space. Lucian pulled back just enough to look into Mara's eyes. "You were incredible. You survived what most people wouldn't." She shook her head. "I couldn't have without Serafina." Lucian looked at his mother with deep pride. Serafina signed something and he laughed under his breath. "She said you drive like a maniac," he translated. Mara laughed weakly, wiping her face. "She's not wrong." Lucian cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear. "You're safe now. I promise." For the first time, she believed him. The rumble of engines grew louder as the rest of the Vieri convoy arrived, securing the area. Lucian stepped beside her, protective and steady. "Come on," he said softly. "Let's go home." Mara nodded, but before she turned, she looked directly toward the imaginary camera of the world watching her story unfold and whispered with a tired, breathless smile, "If you made it this far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next." And with Lucian's arm around her and Serafina smiling silently beside them, Mara walked into the night, alive but forever changed.